gentlemen. Great to be with you. I'm excited about our day today. We've got an opportunity to go after some issues that have been really driving me the last few months, and one particular issue this morning for the last couple of years, to recognize, guys, that we live in a world that's in desperate need of something different. So my fundamental thesis for the entire day is going to be simply this: if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always had, and that's not good enough. If you think about the world the way it was when your grandfather was a young man, you think about that world when marriages stayed together and babies were safe in the womb and God was welcome in the classroom, it was a very different world. And it has, in a certain sense, fallen apart on our watch. And so what we need to recognize is that business as usual isn't good enough. That something needs to change, and that something is you and me. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look at two things that I think are very, very important to us in our lives. We'll take a look at one of them this morning and another one this afternoon. The first one I want to take a look at this morning is time. I want to look at the way we use our time. And the second one this afternoon, I want to look at the way we think about reality. How do we think? Because the way we think affects the way we behave. And the way we behave affects the world around us. And here's the simple truth, guys. So I love coming to men's conferences. We need to recognize that our wives, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters do an amazing job as women in our culture to sustain the culture. Women have this great ability to sustain the culture. But if you look through history, if you look anywhere in history, you will never find a case when women have built culture. That has always been a man's job, to establish culture. And here's the situation, guys. Our culture is not in need of being sustained. It's in ruins. And it needs to be rebuilt, which is men's work, which is why I'm excited to be here with you, because I think we need to live differently, and in order to do that, we've got to understand the importance of time and the importance of the way we think. So those are the two themes we're going to go after today, and I'm looking forward to that. So we'll kind of go at it from if you could imagine like a 30,000-foot view, we'll fly over the top of it in the plenary sessions, and then we'll get down on the ground and walk through it a little bit more on how we're going to do this in the breakout sessions that I go with you. So as we get into the time issue, I think it's about decisions and how we are able to choose. Every day we have to make hundreds and thousands of decisions. Some of them are pretty easy. Some of them are pretty mundane. Do I get a Big Mac or a Whopper? It doesn't really, those are not real big deals. And some of them actually have the ability to shift history. And that's what, if I can leave you with one thought as you leave today, it is that God has called you to change history. And so when I look at this image of how we use time, I think of a story that was shared with me several years ago by a religious sister. We were at a conference and she shared this story with me, and it just has hit home about how we use our time. The story goes something like this. There's an old man and a young boy, and they're on a journey together. And this old man and this young boy are traveling on this long road, and it's a dirt road, and it's really hot and dusty, and they're walking along, and between the two of them, they've got a donkey. It's a little donkey, and they're going along, and after a while, the donkey looks pretty good to the boy, so the boy climbs on the back of the donkey because it's hot. He's getting tired. So the old man is kind of walking along, leading the donkey. The boy is riding on the back of the donkey, and they're going along, and they're making pretty good time. But it's a long road, and it's hot, and it's dusty. And as they're going along, out in the distance, they can see these people coming in the other direction. You can see them for a long time because it's a straight road. It just goes on and on and on. And as they get closer and closer and closer, you can begin to see that they're talking. These group of people that are walking towards them are talking. In fact, as they get closer, they can hear that they're talking about the man and the boy. And when they get real close, you can hear that they're complaining about the man and the boy. In fact, they're complaining about the boy. That's just not right. That's just wrong. Perfectly healthy boy making that old man walk. He's going to kill that old man. Better let the old man ride. The boy hadn't even thought about it. So he gets off the donkey. He says, well, you should ride, I'll walk. So they go on a little bit further, and as they go along, people come around the other direction, and as they get closer, they're talking about it, and they're complaining. That's just wrong, grown man, making that boy walk, that's just wrong. So the man gets off the back of the donkey, and they're kind of walking along again, just leading the donkey. And they go along a little bit longer, and there's some more people, and they're complaining. That's just wrong. Perfectly healthy donkey, nobody riding on it. And so they both get on the back of the donkey. And they're looking kind of foolish because, they're not going very fast. The man's feet are dragging on the ground, but they're riding the donkey. And you know what happens if people come along the other direction. That's just wrong. You're going to kill the donkey. So they're looking looking at going, well, you rode and I rode and nobody rode. We both rode. Everybody's unhappy. What in the world are we going to do? So they do the only thing they can think of, and that is they pick the donkey up and begin to carry the donkey. Now they're really feeling stupid, and they're walking along carrying this donkey. And they come along, and this road goes across this river. In fact, there's a bridge that goes across, and there's this deep ravine on both sides. And the bottom of the steep ravine is a river that's flowing by. And so they're walking along, and as they're going, they're hot and they're thirsty. They look down, and the river looks great. I mean, they wish they could be down there to get a sip of water. And as the boy looks over, he loses his grip on the donkey. And he can't hold the donkey. Well, the old guy can't hold the donkey all by himself, so now he loses his grip, and the donkey starts to slip out of the hands. He falls on the side of the bridge. And he gets to the edge of the bridge, and he flips over. And he tumbles into the ravine, and he rolls down the ravine, and he lands in the river, and the donkey drowns. And the moral of the story is, if you try to please everyone, you can kiss your ass goodbye. Try to make a point out of that now. I am, because here's the deal, guys. We can make lots of decisions, and everybody's got an opinion about anything we do. You should do it this way or that way. Don't do this, do that. Everybody's got an opinion. And if you try to listen to the world and everybody's opinion, you can kiss it goodbye. Because really, there's a single voice that we men need to listen to. A single voice that if we were to listen to, could allow us to make the right decisions at the right time in the right way, and we would live differently. And the voice we need to listen to is the voice of God. And how do we do that as men? Because God is he's a tricky God. You know, you talk to him, and he doesn't talk back the way that our friends do, or that our wives do, or our kids do. They talk back the wrong way, but they at least talk back. But God, you know, he for the most part, just sits there somewhat silently, and you kind of like, I think you're up there. And I got these issues. I don't know what to do at work, or I don't know what to do in my marriage, or I don't know what to do with my kids, or I don't know what to do in this situation or that. And we talk, and it seems as though we're talking to ourselves, and we need to learn how to listen to God, because he does speak to us in the quiet of our hearts, and he speaks to us through the wise counsel of our friends. And what I want to do is I want to look at how we make decisions, how we use our time in life, because time is an amazing thing. Have you ever noticed how unusual time is? Time is amazing. There's never been a time when you weren't in time. You're in time all the time, and yet time surprises you. You ever sat in a situation and go, man, where did time go? Or another situation, you're like, man, oh man, is this ever going to end? Hope you're not doing that right now. Time is funny. You never do that with air. You never like, there's air. We're not surprised by that. Air is around us all the time. Never surprises us. But time is around us all the time, and it surprises us often. Why is that? I really think there's a reason for that. I think there's a reason that time is surprising to us. I think the reason is that of all the things that God has given you, time's the most important thing he's ever given you. And you only have so much. And everything, your entire eternal destiny, depends on how you use it. And he doesn't want you to take it for granted. So he's constantly surprising you by the way time works. Because he wants you and I to understand, you can always get more money, but you can't get more time. And you don't know how much time you get. So we've got to take advantage of the time that we have. We've got to recognize that we as Catholic Christians, for those who are not Catholic and are here visiting, you're welcome. I'm so glad. We're going to speak about the world and reality and the faith from the Catholic perspective today, but you don't need to be a Catholic to hear this. This is something that it's just we're going to be making some truth claims. And excited that you be here to evaluate and see what we have to say. And so thank you so much for being here. For those of you guys who are here because your wife or your friend forced you to be here, don't worry, nothing weird's going to happen today. Well, there'll be a little chest painting after lunch, but no. So I'm glad that you're here, and we're going to go after some things today. And all I ask is that you sit and think about these things. And we'll try to do the best job we can of sharing the realities we want to share with you today in a compelling way. But I think the truths speak for themselves. And so I'd ask you to take the time we have today and use it wisely. So let's get back to time for a second. Another thing about time that is unusual about it is that it depends on how you look at it as to how you see it. Have you ever noticed, I've been blessed with 8 kids, all daughters. Except for 7 of them. I have 1 daughter, 7 sons. And as I've raised my 7 sons and my 1 daughter, I'm always surprised at the way they look at time and the way I look at time. And if I go talk to my parents, they look about time differently because depending on how you look at it. When you talk to a young person and most of their time is in front of them, it's kind of like time's an accordion that's pulled out, right? They say things like, the summer vacation's so far away. I mean, it's like a couple weeks. Whatever. I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and she just doesn't think she's ever going to turn 16 because she wants to drive, right? And you look forward. We do this still. When we got a big task to do, and it's going to be hard, you got a big lawn, you got to mow it, or it's springtime, we got to get ready for the summer, stuff like that. You look at the task, you're like, this is just going to stink. It's going to take a long time. I'm going to have to get after it. And sometimes at work, we sit back and think, well, is there an easier way, a shorter way? Because I don't want to put in all the time. Because when you look at time in the future, it stretches out. But have you ever noticed that when you look back into the past, it does the opposite? Shrinks up, like an accordion pushed together. Remember high school? How about 2nd grade? 2nd grade for me is like 1 page on a scrapbook. I'm sure I had really bad days in 2nd grade. I just don't remember what they were about. I'm sure I had really great days in 2nd grade. I don't remember what those were about either. I just have a few impressions and images. For the most part, I can think of 2nd grade in 1 photo, 1 set of photos, even though it lasted an entire year. We should learn something about that, guys, because if you notice, we're actually moving on a one-way street through time. Which means as time goes on, we have less and less time in the future and more time in the past. Which means that the truer vision of time is the way we look at it in the past than the way we look at it in the future. Because there's going to be a moment in your life when all of your time is in the past. All of it. And you're going to look at your life for the rest of eternity that way. So to have an eternal perspective on time is to think, how would I like to think about this decision 1,000 years from now when I don't care what it costs, when I don't care what the pain or the heartache or the hardship, but I do care about the greatness of this decision. Would I be willing to do something even though it's terribly inconvenient, pushes me way outside my comfort zone? Would I be proud that I did that 1,000 years from now? Because if so, I might want to think about doing it. I might want to think about doing it. Because here's what you never, the regrets. At the end of life, I wish I had spent more time at the office. I just wish that I had watched more SportsCenter. Those are not regrets at the end of your life. But life's a funny thing, and we're funny about it. God made us amazing, and then the fall came, and we're still amazing, but we're broken. So we're amazing, but we walk with a limp. And part of that is we've got this fundamental attachment to comfort. We just love comfort. We do. Comfort is amazing. Think about it. We've been at this for what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? And already you're in fairly comfortable chairs, but we seek comfort. So after a little while, without even really thinking about it, you're like, okay, the left cheek's a little tired. I think I'll shift the weight over to the right cheek, right? Then we move back, and we're going to do that all day long. Sit back, sit up, sit down. We're gonna just, we don't have to say, hey guys, wait a minute, I'm going to get comfortable. No, we don't do that. We just get comfortable. You walk into the living room after a hard day at work, you don't sit back and say, which is the least comfortable chair? I think I sit there. You don't go into a restaurant and say, what would not taste good? You don't do that. You don't even have to be conscious to pursue comfort, gentlemen. Have you ever gone to sleep at night with a sheet and awakened with a blanket? Where'd it come from? In the middle of the night when you were sound asleep. You reach down and grab it, pull it out, and say, I love comfort. You love comfort. Comfort is amazing. Here's the problem with comfort. Pope Benedict nailed this on the very first day that he, very first day. You imagine, Pope, first day on the job. That's kind of a big deal. When you get to speak to the world for the first time. And there's only a handful of popes that when they spoke to the world actually got to speak to the world because of television. I mean, there's only been a handful, maybe 2 or 3. In the whole history of the world, they spoke to a large gathering of people before that, but with television, they literally could speak to the world. So Pope Benedict's one of the few popes that actually got to say Mass and give a homily to the entire world on the first day. That's a pretty big deal. This is what he said to us the very first day. He said, the world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. The world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. That's pretty cool. Here's the challenge. You can't become great and remain comfortable. Can't be done. This is not how you train for a marathon. Tomorrow morning, I will sleep in. And then I will eat a dozen donuts, smoke a pack of cigarettes, and have a beer. You can't run a marathon. It'll kill you. Well, but cigarettes and all this other stuff will too, but it's you can't remain comfortable and train for a marathon, because a marathon is a great task. But gentlemen, what you've been called to do, and we're going to get into that in a little while. I don't know what it is. That's between you and God. But what you've been called to do, I'm convinced of this, is far greater than a marathon. It doesn't matter whether you're 15 or 85 today. If you still got time, you're still called to greatness. In fact, the closer you are to 85, the more important it is that you keep going, because Catholicism has always been about finishing well. It's always been about finishing well. Think about the first saint, thief on the cross. It's not a bad thing. And then he finished well. In heaven forever. He heard Jesus Christ, the one Savior of the world. He heard with his ears Jesus Christ say to him, I assure you, this day you will be with me in paradise. That's a good day. That's a really good day. You couldn't hope for a better day than that. Finish well. Best way to finish well, you younger guys, is to start well. You gotta start if you want to finish. This is so important. How do we do that? Because when I think about time, time is pretty amazing. It's a span of moments from the first moment of your conception to the last moment of your life. It's a span of moments, and all those moments are all part of this thing called time, which is the most important thing that God ever gave you, your time. How you use your time will be how you're judged by God. Have you trusted him? Have you given your life to him? Have you entered into a relationship with him? Have you sought forgiveness from him? Have you used the forgiveness and the mercy and the healing to then be a better man so that you can love the people in your life? That's the sort of thing we're going to be judged on. How'd you use your time? How'd I use my time? But I thought, the more I thought about time, of all the moments in time, there are two moments in time that are more important than all the other moments in time. Two moments that are more important than all the others. The first moment that's more important than all the other ones is this one. This one right now. The one you happen to be living in at any moment. The now is the most important moment. It's the only one you have any control over. You can't control the past. It's done. You don't even know if you have a future. You don't know how far out it is. You don't know anything about it. You can plan for it, but the only way to make those plans effective is to use the now to act on those plans. So now is the most important moment of all. There's one other moment that's similar to the now. One other moment that I think stands out amongst all the other moments in all of your life, and the one that we really have to have our eye on in addition to the now, and that is the very last moment you're going to get. As I just said, you got to finish well. So to use this moment, to aim towards that moment, is the key to a successful life. What did you do now so that you finish well then? To be able to recognize that those two moments stand out. And you know this. You know this. This was taught to you when you were a young boy. You have said this to yourself hundreds of times. Some of you thousands and even tens of thousands of times. You know when you said it? Every time you pray the rosary, every time you pray a Hail Mary, pray for us now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Pray for us now and at the hour of death. Why? Because those are the two most important moments in your entire life. That's what the church tells us. To use those two moments. And I want to talk to you, use this moment to talk to you about that moment. So imagine, if you will, that it's the day of your death. And you show up to the pearly gates and you've just died and you're kind of getting your bearings, and there's St. Peter. He's got this big giant book. This is the Bible. He's got, not the Bible, he's got the book of life. If your name's in here, you get to go in, and if your name's not in there, you go to hell forever. There are only two options in life. Either go to heaven or hell. Play for all the marbles, every day. And success in life means your name's in here. defeat in life, cosmic failure in life, is that you didn't get your name in there. And you wait in line, the line's moving pretty quickly because it's almost heaven. And you get up front, and there's St. Peter, and you introduce yourself, and St. Peter, it's an honor, I like those keys. And, you really have keys, that's pretty funny. And he looks at you and goes, that's good, what's your name? And I'm Curtis Martin. He says, okay, Martin. And he starts paging through, and every time that he turns the page and doesn't see your name, you start to sweat a little bit. Looks up at you and says, what's your middle name? I don't know, you tell me. Arthur. Here it is, Arthur Martin. No, there it is. There it is. He's just found your name in the book of life. And with that, he grabs his keys and he opens the gate and heaven opens up. And you walk in. You're walking into heaven. I don't know what's on the other side of the gates, guys. I don't know. In fact, we're told in the scriptures that it has not entered into the hearts or minds of men what God has prepared for them. So it's not that our imagination hasn't been given information to think about. It's that it's so big. To think about what is in heaven is kind of like trying to bite a wall. It just doesn't fit in your head. I don't know what's on the other side of that. Because here's the deal, guys. Sometimes we think, well, hell is a place where there's worms and fire and nasty stuff. And in heaven, it's kind of like little baby angels and harps. Seriously? You want to spend eternity? I don't even like listening to harp for very long at all. A couple songs, I'm done. Eternity? Are you sure I'm in the right place? I don't know what's on the other side of that, guys. I don't know. All I know is that it's not going to satisfy your desires. Heaven, this is very important, heaven will not satisfy your desires. Heaven was never designed to satisfy your desires. Heaven will overwhelm your desires. It hasn't even ended. You're going to be given things that you will crave that while you were here on earth you had no cravings for. You're going to be over. He's going to be able to give you things you never knew you wanted, and when you receive them, you'll say, I don't know how to live without this. He's going to overwhelm us with whatever's on the other side of that gate, and you open up, you walk in, and I don't know, it's streets with gold and parks with trees that bear fruit in all seasons, which right about now, if you are in Iowa or Colorado, sounds pretty good. And I don't know what it is. There's a lot of different images, and none of them come close, because we've been told it hasn't entered into the hearts or minds of men what God has prepared for them. It will be absolutely overwhelming in the very best sense of the word. One of the images in there is it's a wedding feast, the wedding of a lamb, where Jesus takes his bride to church and they are united forever. So let's just use that image for heaven. You walk into heaven, it's a giant wedding feast. And you get in and it's overwhelming, it's spectacular. All the best things on earth, best sunsets and sunrises, the most beautiful mountains and ocean scenes, the best moments with family, all these things are all wham, and they all pale in comparison. In fact, you're so thrilled to be there, and all of a sudden you're thinking, I want to see my grandma and my grandpa, I want to see the people that had the hugest impact in my life, and yet you have no sense of rush because you have eternity. And you're walking around, you're kind of getting your bearings, and it's absolutely spectacular, and it hits you. This is the best day of your life, which is amazing, because it didn't start that well. You died. It's amazing how heaven can set things right. You know, there's been things in your life, hurts and pains, loved ones who have been sick or died or taken from you, difficulties in business and relationships and all sorts of challenges, and you found yourself saying, when I get up there, I'm going to ask you, you know what, you get up there and you don't have any questions, because it all makes sense. Everything is so good that nothing that was wrong makes any difference anymore. You learn, and I learned, what St. Teresa of Avila learned on this earth, which was if you take all the pain and all the suffering of all the people throughout all of history and put it on one scale, and you take one moment of the joys of one soul in heaven, the one soul's joy outweighs all the misery. It's just that big. It's that good. And you're standing there, and you're just hard to get your breath, and a little angel flies by with some hors d'oeuvres, because it's a wedding. And you reach over and you pluck one off of there, and you stick it in your mouth, and you're like, oh, that was amazing. That's the best thing I ever had. That is so good. And you're just sitting there going, gosh, this is amazing. And the lights go up and down. And it's time to take your seats. And you're walking, looking around, and everybody's taking a seat. You look over, there's no name tags. You can sit wherever you want. And you're looking around, and there's a table. A little round table, maybe 8, 10 people at it. There's a seat. And you walk up and you say, excuse me, is this seat saved? And they say, well, everything up here is saved. It's heaven. But you can sit there if you like. It's great. So you sit down and you're like, oh, I'm in heaven. And it's a banquet. I can't believe it. This is so great. And sit there for a second and you're looking around and you're thinking, I should probably get a conversation. And look over, the guys on one side are in conversation and the gals on the other side are in another conversation. You look across the table and there's this old guy sitting right across the table from you. And then you look at him and then you realize, you look again, he's not actually old. I mean, he looks like a long time. He's fit. He looks great. Great shape. Has a radiance about him. And as you're looking at him, thinking, man, the guy's in phenomenal shape. He looks up and he says, welcome. You're like, it's first day. He goes, first day. Isn't it great? Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And see, there's a pause. You say, I didn't catch your name. And he says, oh, I'm Ignatius, Bishop Ignatius of Antioch. You're thinking, first day now I got a bishop. That is great. And the guy next to him says, well, the bishop is being humble. And he's not just Bishop Ignatius of Antioch. He's actually Saint Ignatius of Antioch. He's a father of the church and an early Christian martyr. And you're like, man, I wish I paid attention to catechism because I have no idea. But you're thinking pretty quick on your feet because you're in heaven. And so you say, so Bishop, tell me about yourself. And the bishop thinks to himself for a second, and you can see he's kind of collected his thoughts, almost like, well, where do I begin? And this new friend of mine's asked me to explain who I am. How would I do that today? And he smiles, he says, well, let me begin kind of at the beginning. You know, our Lord, Jesus Christ, he raised up 12 apostles, and at the end of his life, at the very end of his life, after he already suffered and died and risen from the dead and spent 40 days with the apostles, at the end of his life, the very last moment of his earthly ministry, on Ascension Thursday, he gathered the apostles and some of the other followers, and he gathered them, and he gave them what has been called the Great Commission. Last words that Jesus ever said on earth. He turned to the apostles at the end of his earthly ministry, and he looked at them and he said, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all the nations. Baptize them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to observe all that I have commanded you. And I will be with you until the end of the age. And with that, he literally was lifted up into the sky. He ascended into heaven, where he sits until the second coming. Now the apostles took him seriously. They heard that he had all authority and that he had given them the authority, and they went out and did just what he said. They began to make disciples all over the world, to baptize them and to teach them everything that Christ had commanded them. And one of the apostles was the Apostle John, and one of his disciples was me. You knew the Apostle John. I did. I lived with him. You lived with the Apostle John. What? And just you're about to ask what that's like. You're in heaven. You're pretty quick right now. You're about to ask what that's like, and then all of a sudden something in the catechism does come back. And you think, well, wait a second. At the end, when Jesus was on the cross, John, St. John was there, right? Didn't he, while he was hanging from the cross, dying for the sins of the world, didn't he look down at the Apostle John and say, behold your mother, and entrust the care of the Blessed Virgin Mary to the Apostle? Didn't he do that? He goes, of course he did. She lived with John. I lived with her. You lived with the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Apostle John. What the heck was that like? He goes, like, you would have loved dinner. Oh, we would go on for hours. You know, Mary was a very good cook. And perfect. And we would sit down for dinner, and these two people, Mary and John, they'd been loved by Jesus Christ. I mean, they knew Jesus Christ. And they would share stories of their time with Jesus. Mary would talk about his childhood, and John would talk about the Sermon on the Mount. I mean, every night, we just couldn't wait to sit back down and hear more stories. In fact, I found myself, as I sat with dinner with them, that even though I had never met Jesus physically, personally, I began to fall in love with him because of the love they had was so real and so contagious that they shared their love of Christ with me, and I began to love him and want to follow him. They shared with me that he had risen from the dead, and he was alive today, to hear our prayers, and that he was calling men and women to turn to him and to accept his forgiveness and to live different lives and to live lives of greatness so that they could change the world. And he had come to change the world, but he wasn't going to do it by himself. He was going to empower the men and women who believed in him to live different lives and change the world. And I'm in. I want to do that. I want to live that way. And so John mentored me. He taught me. And then he was taken and put in prison in exile. And I was made the bishop of Antioch in his place. Antioch was an amazing city. It's actually the city where the followers of Jesus Christ were first called Christians. And I was their bishop. I watched thousands of people move from lives of desperate, lives of sin and darkness, into lives of hope and purpose and meaning by discovering what it meant to be forgiven and to live differently and to recognize that they were made for a purpose. I recognized and watched this, and I was their spiritual father, the bishop of Antioch. And this went on for years, and Antioch became a center of Christianity. So much so that at a point in time, a new emperor in Rome arose, and he didn't like Christianity because it was changing the culture. It was changing people's lives, and he wanted lives the way they were because they were easy to manage. And I was known as a troublemaker as the bishop, and so even though I lived a long way from Rome, soldiers were sent to Antioch to capture me. And I was, by that time, an old man in my 80s. And soldiers showed up at my home and put me in chains and led me from Antioch in Asia Minor through Eastern Europe into Western Europe into Rome to stand trial for being a Christian. Now, at the time, if you were found guilty of being a Christian, the punishment was death by being fed to wild beasts. The Romans had lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! And they would just throw people out there, and they would have people come in and watch. It was kind of a spectacle. And so I was being led back across, and I realized I didn't have a lot of time left. And I began to write letters to the churches as I would go by, and I would encourage them, because I only had a little bit of time. I wanted to make sure I used it well. And Christians knew of me. And so when I wrote a letter, they would listen to me, and I wrote them things. And they're there in libraries today, and I would write to them and say, you got to love your bishop. He's just a man, but he stands in the office that Jesus Christ gave to the apostles. You got to love your bishop. You got to pray for him. Because where the bishop is, there is the church. I wrote to them and said, but when you receive the Eucharist, you're not receiving bread. You're receiving the very body and blood of Jesus Christ. Stay close to the Eucharist. I wrote to them and said, be true to Christ in all things. He died for you so that you could live. Live for him. And as I moved along and was being led to Rome, some of the Christians I found were going to make a plan to release me. They were going to come in this valiant attempt to rescue me so that I could escape. And I wrote to them and I said, please don't do that. I have one life. Let me give it for Christ. If you think about me in the mouths of the beast, think about it this way. Think of it as a grain of wheat is ground into flour and then made into bread, and in the hands of the priest becomes the body of Christ. Think of my body ground in the mouths of the beast to be offered up to God. What happened? They listened to me. They didn't arrest me. I stood trial. I was found guilty of being a Christian. I was fed to wild beasts. I've been here ever since. So tell me about your life. Gentlemen, you will have dinner with St. Ignatius, and he will tell you his story. And so will St. John Bosco, so will St. Maximilian Kolbe, so will all the saints, because everybody there in heaven is a saint. They're all going to share their stories, not to bring themselves glory, but to bring God the glory. And they're going to share their stories. And that's the way you and I, we're going to spend eternity. And today, you get to use the rest of your time to choose how you want to write the rest of your story. Because I don't think anything else matters. Here's a conversation that never takes place in heaven. When I was on earth, I used to own a Mercedes. Who cares? You can fly. By the way, here's a conversation that never takes place in hell. When I was on earth, I used to own a Mercedes. Who cares? You're on fire. These things just don't matter. I mean, I know there's got to be very few feelings in life cooler than the first time you plug that key into your brand new Mercedes and drive off a lot and say, I'm there. I know, that's really cool. But if it distracts you from what you were made to do, from what you were placed here by God to do, then the Mercedes is a piece of crap. Pardon my French. You've got to get it out of your life. Because there's nothing wrong with cool things. But here's the problem, guys. Cool things make us comfortable. And you weren't made for comfort. You were made for greatness. That's not the Pope singing poetry to you. That is a mandate from the Vicar of Christ saying, guys, get off the sofa, live differently. You have the capacity. I have the capacity. We need to learn how to use that capacity to change the world. I mean, guys, look around us. Is there any corner of the world that doesn't need somebody to step in and say, let me help fix that? Any corner. If you think the world's okay, check your pulse. Read the front page of the newspaper. Turn on the news for 25 seconds. It's a bad place out there. And we're the men, we're the guys that are supposed to go in and rescue. That image of the firemen and the policemen rushing into the buildings in 9/11, those were men. That's what you and I are called to do, to rush into the burning building that is our world, is your city and your state and our nation, and my city and my state and our nation. To be able to recognize wherever God has placed you, there's work to be done. From the moment of conception to natural death, every part of life is in absolute crisis right now. Contraception keeps people away from even being conceived. Abortion gets 1 out of 3 that are conceived before they're born. Congratulations, you're born. Half of you are born into poverty. You don't have the basics of food and clean water and basic medical care. Congratulations, you're well fed. You get to live in a culture filled with pornography and divorce and abuse. And in the midst of all that, you get to make your life decisions and try to figure out what you're going to do so you can do it all over again. And if you live long enough to get sick, you'll have somebody try to kill you when you're old. It's not just a theory anymore. I have one of the guys I worked with this year, his father-in-law, was killed this year in a hospital. Had a heart attack, wasn't doing very well. His family, he had remarried late in life as a widower, married a woman who wasn't a Christian, and they looked at it and saw the medical bills, and they just pulled the tubes. He starved to death about 3 days later. They're killing people in hospitals, guys. Both at the beginning of life and at the end. Pick anywhere in the culture and just go at it. Well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to fix that problem. Has that ever stopped you in business? Isn't that exactly how we get good at business? You look at a problem and say, I don't know how to solve that. If we could solve that, we could make a lot of money. Let's get some smart guys together and figure out how to solve that problem. We'll try it. Oh, no, that didn't work. Let's try again. How about this way? Nope, not that way. How about this way? Hey, we nailed it and now we're rich. We do it all the time. That's what men do. We solve problems. Small problems are tough at getting directions, but we invented GPS to avoid that. Little problem. Hey, you tell me where I'm going? I said, pay down. Well, I'll get a device that goes up into the space. It goes back down until where I'm going. I'll find out. We solve problems. We solve problems. Guys, our world's surrounded by problems. And you can't sit back and say, well, I wish the president or the Congress or the Supreme Court or I wish the local government or I wish the priest, as a priest or the bishops. Or what about the Pope? No, dudes, what about you? What about me? Life's not a spectator sport. Not a spectator sport. How do we use the now to live differently? Because if you always done and I always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always had, and that's not good enough. Our sons and our daughters and our grandkids and their friends are being devastated. Devastated. About 12 years ago, I was asked by my friend Steve Wood to give a talk at a men's conference. And he said, would you give a talk on pornography? I thought, great, what do I do for that? I'm not going to research it. What do you do with that? So I said, what do you want me to do? And I said, I hadn't really thought about it. And he said, no, I think this is a big problem, and I think you could do some research on the problem. So I went back and did the research, and at the time, 12 years ago, pornography was a larger industry than Major League Baseball, dollar for dollar. You know how much money that is? It's amazing. I mean, those guys make a lot of money. Larger industry than Major League Baseball 12 years ago. That's not the case today, guys. That's not the case today. Did you know that today, pornography is a larger industry than Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and Fox Television? Did you know that the revenue on pornography is 10 times that of the NFL? And there's a lot of money in the NFL, guys. How many people here watched football sometime this year? Okay, more of you watch porn. Just half, 10 times that. You can't pump that filth into your soul and not have it ruin your life. You can't do it. A friend of ours on our staff, I work with missionaries on college campuses, and a friend of ours who is one of our missionaries has this great image. She goes, let me give you an image. I'm going to make a plate of brownies for you. They're my mother's recipe. They're great brownies. And here's the deal. I just want to do one thing. I'm just going to put a little bit of poop in the brownies. How much poop can I put in the brownies before you don't want to eat it anymore? Pornography is way worse than poop. Way worse. Guys, we can fix that. We can fix that. Drugs, divorce, abortion, poverty. I don't know what issue God is calling you to fix. I just know deep, deep down the fiber of my being, God is calling you to spend the rest of your life fixing something. And it doesn't even really matter what you choose to fix. I mean, I go to prayer. Here's a simple question that you can ask God. I think you can probably in 20 minutes figure out what he wants you to do. You just go and you sit with God. Maybe go to the church in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Maybe go to your house to a room where there's nobody else around. Just get someplace that's quiet. Go in your car, go sit in a parking lot or something. Just get someplace that's quiet and just say, God, if I'm supposed to live differently and you want me to go after something, fix it. What is it you want me to fix? What is it you want me to go after? And here's the deal, guys. I'm pretty sure that one of three things is going to happen. If you sit there for 10 minutes alone with God, something's going to come to your mind that either makes you very angry, or very sad, or very happy. And I'm pretty sure you're supposed to start investing your life, your time, into that. I know for myself, God changed my life my sophomore year in college. Changed my life my sophomore year in college. I was living a life of complete and total frustration. On the outside, I looked like I was doing everything to make me happy, and on the inside, I was dying. Because I had bought the lie of the world that says that fun will lead to happiness. Fun was never intended to lead to happiness. Goodness leads to happiness. Fun is a way to waste time. Nothing wrong with fun, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And if you fill your life with fun, thinking it's going to make you happy, you'll make yourself miserable on the inside. It's like drinking salt water. Looks like it would be refreshing. Doesn't do anything to satisfy the thirst. And so I spent a lot of time pursuing fun at a really high level, and I was really miserable. And God made himself real to me my sophomore year in college, and that brought me great joy, and I have spent the rest of my life. I met a woman who had a very similar experience in college, and we started an organization called Focus, and we now got 250 missionaries working full-time on 50 college campuses around the country. And we're watching God unleash the same sort of hope and joy in the lives of young people in the midst of great despair, because they too are pursuing fun with a vengeance, hoping to make them happy, and they're miserable, which is why the depression rate amongst college students is out of control, the attempted suicide rate is out of control, the type of self-inflicted misery, the cutting, the eating disorders, all out of control on college campuses, because people on college campuses are pursuing fun, and they're making themselves miserable because fun doesn't make you happy. Or maybe abortion has touched your life and you want to go to work on abortion. Maybe divorce has touched your life. Maybe pornography. I don't know what the issue that's made you happy with great joy or sad or angry, but whatever it is, go there. You know what? You say, well, I don't know if that was it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Because here's the beautiful thing about God. God can do anything. But what God can't do is steer a parked car. So just get going. You think it's abortion, but he actually wants you to fight global hunger? He'll show you once you get going in the pro-life ministry. You'll meet some people who and they will lead you in a different path, but man, just move. Because God can steer you once you're going. He can steer that. But if you stop, he can't steer. And to use your life to recognize, oh, I don't know if I can make a difference. Too, you were made to make a difference. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. You're not here because of a biological accident. We're going to get into some worldview and some understanding of stuff. You're not a biological accident. You're not the random creation of molecules. You were willed by God into existence. Did you know that God loves you so much that he loved the idea of you before he loved you? That's why you exist. He loved the idea of you so much, he created you. He had the idea in his mind, and he liked it so much, he loved it, and then at a point in time, he created it. The idea, we're told in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4, from the foundations of the world, God chose us in Christ. Which means that when God said, let there be light, he was thinking about you and me. From the foundations of the world, God chose us in Christ. And then at the foundation of the world, he's thinking about you. And then at a point in time in history, at the appropriate moment, right underneath the heart of your mother, you were conceived. And the intellectual conception of you became the biological conception of you, and you existed. Now, he waited a long time to bring you here. He made you to be alive right now. It wasn't like he rolls dice to see what's happening. He knows exactly who you are because he made you. And he made you to live now, which means you were made for the challenges of today. And the fact that there are many challenges today is bad news for the world, but it's great news for you and for me. You know why it's great news? Because think about it. Think about it. There were no civil rights crisis in our country in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. There were no civil rights crisis in our country. It would have been a better country. You know who the civil rights crisis was really good for, though? Martin Luther King Jr. If there hadn't been a civil rights crisis, you'd never heard of him. He'd been an ordinary preacher from the South. That's it. He rose to greatness because he stepped into a crisis. Gentlemen, if you think about it, that's how men become great. They step into crisis. Jesus Christ, the greatest man who ever lived, stepped into the greatest crisis that ever existed. Our inability to get to heaven on our own. We just can't get there. No amount of good works, no amount of hard effort, no amount of religious practice will get us there. We actually need him to give us his grace for free. Then we can respond. But until then, our souls are like spiritual corpses. They just can't do anything to help themselves. They're dead. But once they're given new life in Christ, well now they can live again. Biggest problem we've ever had, greatest person to ever solve it. And every man of greatness has stepped in to points of crisis. So the fact that there's a lot of crisis in the world is great news for you and me. Because you and I, when we're made for comfort, we're made for greatness. You know how cool that is? Absolutely amazing. So I want to, we're running out of time in this session. I'm going to go after, okay, how can we practically do that? How can I make a difference in life? We'll do that in the breakout session. I sit back and say, what are some practical steps, no matter where God's going to lead you, whether it's the pro-life movement or the anti-pornography movement or whatever it might be, the restoration of marriage. Michael Ann, my wife and I just completed a forward for a book from Greg and Julie Alexander. Greg and Julie Alexander do this amazing work called the Alexander House. Check it out online. If you've got friends who have marriages that are struggling, if you have friends who have marriages who are dying, if you have friends whose marriages are over, contact the Alexander House. It's absolutely amazing what God is doing. Greg and Julie lived together before they got married. They lied to one another. They got married in the church, but didn't really know what they were doing. They both had affairs. They were ready. They were divorcing one another. They were walking out the door, and a priest popped in and said, "Would you like to have this marriage saved?" And they looked at one another, and their first response was, "No, I actually just hate this person now." And they thought about it and said, "You know what? this divorce would be such a tragedy. And I really don't want to be with this person at all. They drive me crazy. The idea of them irritates me so much it makes me want to spit. But they made the decision to turn to the church, and God restored their marriage. And they founded the Alexander House, and thousands of marriages have been restored. Just a couple who have no qualifications whatsoever, except that they were sinners who had been healed by God. And they've changed the lives of thousands of families. I don't know what God's called you to do, but we look at the principles that will apply no matter what you do. Part of the issue, the first step is, we've got to be able to have that life. If we don't know God, we're not in a relationship with Him, then we're not going to be able to do that. Two questions, they're almost the same question, different versions of it that I get asked almost everywhere I go. Almost everywhere I go, because I work with college students, I am greeted by people, frequently men, almost all the time women, who walk up to me and say, I have a son or a daughter who's away from the Catholic Church, what can I do? Or I have a grandson or granddaughter away from the church, what can I do? Almost everywhere I go. How many people in here have a loved one who is away from the Catholic Church? I'm in the right track. We are hemorrhaging them, hemorrhaging. The statistics are that those high school students that went to Mass on Sunday in high school, 80% of them don't go to Mass on Sunday in college. I don't know what business you work in, but if you've got an 80% failure rate in the first year out of the box, you're not going to be in business very long. Not long at all. This is not what the church has done historically. We have grown historically. We are hemorrhaging right now. The other question I get asked is, I've got young kids, but how do I keep them kept? Kind of the same question, but preventative medicine or restorative medicine. And we had that question asked so many times that we wrote a couple of pamphlets, and I want to give it to you free if you're interested. So the first one is called Bringing Loved Ones Home, and the other one is Passing On the Faith. And they're available if you go back to our table, just this brochure right there, and we will send them to you. They're free. I want you to have them if you've got a loved one. Practical, biblically based, catechism-based principles that will allow us, because raising kids is a lot like farming. You can do everything right and it still might not work, but over time, good farmers will produce great crops because they're cooperating with the master's plan. And so we want to be able to recognize that. So please go by our table. We've got a couple of missionaries here, Jonathan and Jason, who are here today, who serve at Dubuque and Loras College, and they're with us. In fact, guys, are you going to pass those brochures out? Okay, they're passing the brochures out. Well, you don't have to go by the table. If you like it, just fill that out and we'll send that to you. Guys, we're going to move into our first break right now. But I would just ask this, drink deeply of the day. God has arranged it so that this was a great day for you to be here. The weather stinks, so there's no options for golf. God has prepared this for you, and you can choose whether you want to just pass through the day or whether you want to reach in. We were with the conference committee last night, and I think there was a deep-seated desire within all of us, a shared conviction that if this is a really great conference and you really enjoy it, we will have failed. But if our lives are changed, if we make decisions today that change the way that we live tomorrow, if we were to do those fundamental steps that we need so that we don't live the same way last week as we will next week, if we were to do that, then this conference would have been a great success. And so we're going to talk about tools and habits that can be adjusted and different things that can be incorporated into our lives to do that, so that you can become the man who's in the process of becoming the man he was meant to be. Because God has made each of you for more. St. Ignatius, another St. Ignatius, St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, was a great man. And as he would gather the young Jesuits together, at the end of every meeting, no matter who he was meeting with, he would always end with the same statement. He'd have his guys together at the end of the meeting and say, go set the world on fire. Go set the world on fire. Guys, I thank you for the time this morning. Go set the world on fire.